Breaking tonight, one terror group with its sights on America gets its hands on nuclear materials, while another tries to raise the stakes in a war with a key U.S. ally. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Let's start with Iraq, where the group that just created the world's first terrorist state now has its hands on some hulking American-made armored vehicles. These things stand around 10 feet tall and were built to withstand everything from IEDs to landmines and more. The Iraqi government also confirming today that the group, now said to be targeting the U.S. homeland, just got its hands on nearly 90 pounds of nuclear material, the stuff of so-called dirty bombs. The Pentagon trying to reassure people today by pointing out that the uranium now in the hand of ISIS is not the more deadly weapons-grade version, but that doesn't much matter when you are out to terrorize. How would you feel? You don't care if ISIS gets uranium on you, do you? It's not weapons-grade, not to worry. And just 500 miles to the west of there, rockets are tonight raining down on Tel Aviv. While in the Gaza Strip, the terror group Hamas is telling civilians to just ignore the advance warnings that Israel gives before it launches its airstrikes, which means Hamas is effectively ordering residents to die in order to further that group, which we recognize as a terror organization, that group's cause. Congressman Peter King is the former chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. He was briefed earlier this week about the threat from this terror group in Iraq, and he has been monitoring the events in Israel. Congressman, good to see you tonight. And so how concerned should we be now that ISIS has its hands on 90 pounds of uranium?
Megyn, we should be very concerned. And the fact that the government or the administration is trying to pass this off as not being enriched and perhaps not being weapons grade, the fact is it still could be used for a dirty bomb. This is an issue we've had to confront in New York, and that's why the NYPD set up the Secure the Cities program. You get uranium, you get radioactive material, you case it in explosives, in conventional explosives, and the blast will kill many people, and the impact of the radiation will contaminate an area. Now, you put that into downtown Baghdad in a market area, or bring it across the border into Jordan and set it off in Amman. One thing, you'd have loss of life, but the psychological effect and the contamination that would result from that radioactive material would have a severe impact. And for people who say it's not that significant, I wouldn't want it going off in my backyard, in my neighborhood, in a department store in my district. I wouldn't want it going off in any type where there's a large number of people gathered. So, no, this is very serious and very concerning.
And I mean, not to mention what they could do to the water supply and other, using it as a potential contaminant, in other words, should they get the opportunity.
Absolutely.
But the question is whether they would have the capability to do that over here in the homeland, whether ISIS is any sort of a meaningful threat to us here in the homeland, whether it has uranium or not.
Oh, ISIS is a threat to us. In fact, 3 years ago, when they called themselves Al-Qaeda in Iraq, there were 3 of them, 3 members were arrested attempting to attack Fort Knox in Kentucky. They've made it clear they want to attack the United States. So we have to be very, very concerned about them coming here as far as explosive devices on planes, any other way they can get in here. No, we have to be very concerned. They are very lethal, very deadly, and if anything, even more fanatical than core Al-Qaeda. It's a very real concern.
What should the Obama administration be doing? Because, obviously we have these advisors on the ground in Iraq, but now we've got a terror group that's so radical, Al-Qaeda wants nothing to do with it, and it's got components, potential components of at least a dirty bomb, if not a nuclear bomb.
Right. Well, first of all, not to relive the past, but this wouldn't have happened if President Obama had not pulled all our troops out. But we are where we are right now. And it's not just Iraq, it's Syria and Iraq. They are setting up a caliphate there. I believe we have to use air power to at least blunt the ISIS attack now, the offensive, blunt that offensive. Also, I believe that we should use special forces that should be on the ground, not so much engaged in combat, but being able to pick out targets. And we should be also training and working with our allies in the region. But we have to, this has to get top priority. This is a major threat to us.
Congressman Peter King, thank you for being here.
Megyn, thank you.
And in a case of awful timing, as we watch this growing threat to our national security, we today heard the Department of Defense announce that thousands of U.S. soldiers are being let go, some of them literally getting pink slips on the battlefield. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor, a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. And so, Pete, that is because of budget cuts. And we are pink slipping our military as the president asks Congress for $3.5 billion to help illegal immigrants who have crossed our southern border with no concern for our law. So he wants $3 billion for them, but he can't find the funding for our military as we see a terror group with its hands on uranium, and there's apparently a war going on in Israel, which we're going to get to next.
Yeah, so let's get this right. Islamists are on the march. We're spending $4 billion on the border that we've said we otherwise don't have for defense. And we're sending pink slips specifically to captains and majors, guys and gals who entered the military to fight the very Islamists we've been fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan today. So we're sending pink slips to guys on the battlefield in Afghanistan right now, telling them we no longer need your services, but we're willing to spend $4 billion on illegals on the border. That $4 billion, Megan, if you splice it, could pay for 8 brigade combat teams, for 40,000 of the 80,000 troops we're reducing. This is a matter of priorities and then holding our eyes up, holding our hands over our eyes, wishing away an enemy and cutting the very troops who would be the linchpin of fighting them if and when we need them.
That's the thing, because when these budget cuts were approved, and they were approved on a bipartisan basis, it must be said, things weren't quite, they didn't look quite the same as they do right now in the Middle East, Pete.
Well, no, they didn't look the same, but I think it was willful blindness to think that we wouldn't have problems in light of the policies this administration has pursued, basically policies of weakness and retreat. But there was not overwhelming bipartisan support. I mean, many on the right have recognized that when you reduce your military this deeply, this dramatically, and this in such a draconian way, you're going to see just chops to very capable aspects of that. And it rolls downhill, Megan. We don't make tough decisions about our higher officer corps. It turns it out to be captains, lieutenants, sergeants who take the brunt of these cuts, but those happen to also be the brains and the guts of this generation's fight against folks like ISIS. We're going to need that expertise again, and we're stripping it out of our military right now in favor of dependency programs, money to the border, and transforming America, and it's a damn shame.
Pete Hegseth, thank you.
Thank you.